Am I the fool for telling my husband's kids how broke he was when we met after they insinuated I was a gold digger? I've 38 female been married to my husband Rob, 52 male for 4 years now. My husband's late wife died 1 year before we met and we dated for 2 years before marriage. He has 2 kids, 28 Madison and 26 Brett. Note, I am not calling them my stepkids, because they explicitly told me I am not their stepmom, just their dad's wife. I didn't play a part in raising them, so I'm okay with that. It's always been a tense between us. I've tried my best to be kind to them and have been generous when I can be, but they are very cold with me. Being a child of divorce, I can partially relate to a parent moving on, so I try not to force anything. Madison recently got engaged and we are excited about it. Everyone was over recently and she asked about a wedding budget from us and Rob told her he was able to contribute $10,000. She has bigger hopes for her wedding than this, so she was upset and kept asking for more. Rob, however, is still working hard on building his savings back up. Before his late wife died, he basically wiped out his cash savings, had to cash out his 401k, and even took a small mortgage on his house to cover medical costs as well as life expenses since he had to cut back on working. Eventually, he had to drop that job for a more flexible but lower paying one, so this $10,000 is actually really generous from him. Rob went to run an errand and it was just me and his kids. Madison then asked me if I'm going to give any in addition to what her dad is giving. I told her we're a marital unit and that's what we discussed together as a reasonable amount to contribute. She then said I should have known, obviously you married an older man for what he had, not for what you could give. I knew she didn't like me, but this is the most flat-out rude thing she ever said. I kinda lost it and said, excuse me, who do you think has been paying the second mortgage your dad took out to pay his debts? Truth of the matter is I make more than her father by a large margin, I have no debt, and have been paying 70% of the household bills the whole time we've been married. The $10,000 we're giving her is available because I've been able to subsidize her father's living expenses the last few years. I made it clear that not only am I not a gold digger, I'm literally wealthier than my older husband. She called me stuck up after this and stormed out. Then she called her dad later and said that I told her that I blamed her mother for being sick for her not having a better wedding budget. I told him what happened and he was mad at her, but also said I shouldn't have shared his financial details with his kids. Am I the fool for telling my friend it's not my problem she married a useless man? I, 32 female, am a single mother of 2 kids, 6 male and 5 male F. I am a single mother by choice, my kids are donor conceived. I am lucky enough to have a good job, French teacher in a private school, and a paid-off house, parents' life insurance and inheritance. Before I had either of my kids, I made sure to have a year's living expenses saved, then I would take a sabbatical to recover from birth, as well as bond with my kids. While on sabbatical, I still tutor some kids for some extra income. My friend, 34 female, just had a baby 2 months ago. She is the breadwinner in her household, and her husband has been unemployed since he was laid off during COVID. It was great to be pregnant at the same time, as well as having a friend with a newborn. But it has turned sour. She has been saying how jealous she is of me being able to take off a whole year from work, how she would have loved to not worry about losing their home, how she doesn't even have a couple $100s in her savings account, let alone a whole year's worth of living expenses. I usually ignore it, or brush it off, because I kind of can understand the stress she is under. Well, starting about 10 days ago, she started hinting at not being able to afford daycare, and any mention of her husband taking care of their kid is brushed off. Then she started remarking on how much free time I must have, which I deflected by saying, truthfully, that being a single mom to a baby and a small kid left me no free time actually. Then last night, she came out with it, and asked if I could do her a favor and watch her kid while she's at work. I was firm, but polite, when I said that I couldn't, that I am not capable of watching 2 kids under 6 months. She started almost begging me, saying she can't afford daycare, and if she is not back at work, she will lose her job, and they will end up homeless. I again brought up her husband, and she said that he was not good with kids, and isn't capable of taking care of her kid. I kept saying no, she kept pushing, until it escalated to her calling me heartless, and me telling her that it's not my problem she chose to have a kid with a useless man. Now she blocked me. I am feeling very guilty about what I said, and feeling like a fool. Am I the fool for not giving my parents the baby blanket my great-grandma made for me so they can use it for my baby sister? My great-grandma made a baby blanket for me when my mom was pregnant. She did that for all her kids, grandkids, and then great-grandkids. I was the youngest until now. Great-grandma would make it clear to the parents involved that the baby she made the blankets for should be considered the owner's, and it shouldn't be something they kept from us. So this is what always happened. I always had mine. My parents did try to take it from me a few times, but great-grandma stepped in each and every time. I loved mine because she had started experimenting with her knitting, and my blanket is more unique than the rest and feels just a little more personal. I treasure it despite being a 17-year-old guy. I treasure it more because great-grandma died when I was 10 and I miss her like crazy. So my parents couldn't have more kids for years. They tried for years and even did IVF when I was 7, but didn't have another kid from it. Their focus being so set on that, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. This is something extended family brought to their attention a few times. It was comments like, "I just want a baby so bad, I can't imagine my life without a child," from my mom, and comments from my dad like, "We feel so incomplete without a baby," that would get family members to take notice. Those were some of the kinds of comments that left me feeling as I do. It was never another baby, it was always a baby, like I was invisible. They talked about having a baby being their biggest dream. It stung so much to have their life focus around that, and they'd get so depressed about not having a baby. Great-grandma, before she died, told them to be thankful for the blessing, aka me, and how they already had a baby and they were letting me grow up without them. It didn't change anything. And I did basically grow up without my parents. They have no idea who my friends are or what's going on in my life. This was a surprise pregnancy, and my parents are so excited. They did all the early tests to find out they're having a girl, and they started shopping and all kinds of stuff for her. But then my mom got sad because great-grandma isn't around to knit her a blanket too. So they told me they wanted mine. They didn't ask. They told me. And when I said no, they grew angry. They said she deserves to have a blanket from great-grandma and their baby needs one. I asked what I was, and they said an almost grown man. I left the blanket with my best friend because I was afraid my parents would search the house to find it. They were so pissed and they started doing the guilt trip saying my baby sister deserves better, and how can I look at myself in the mirror knowing I don't want to share this with her. They told me it's like I don't even want her to exist or I hate her for something, and she's not even born yet. Am I the fool?
Am I the fool for telling my DIL for F's sake I have a life and I am not going to be cookie-cutter grandma and I will call the police? My son and DIL have been married for around 7 years at this point. They have 2 kids. All of my children are out of the home and living their lives. My husband and I are still working and will probably retire in 10 to 15 years. Around 70. My DIL and I got along much better before the kids came into the picture. They live 30 minutes away and she is always trying to drop them off. I thought my son was in on this, but no. I sat them down and he had no idea this was happening. I showed the many texts asking for me to babysit and he was under the impression that I have only babysat twice this month, not 16 times. Apparently she has been dropping them off with me to hang out with people, and my son was under the impression she was taking them with her. I started to communicate in a group chat with them so everyone was on the same page. I only respond to her in the group chat, and if she starts to spam me with texts about it I throw a screenshot in the group chat and have my son deal with it. We have talked and it comes down with her wanting her kids to have the same relationship she had with her grandparents. In short, I explained that I am still working and I will not have that relationship. That I can't have the kids every other day just like she had growing up. We agreed to every 2 weeks to have a grandma day. All good for about a year. My son is now traveling for work and she is at it again. The time difference makes it hard to have him shut it down when it happens. I was home for about an hour when she showed up at my home. She wanted me to babysit when she went shopping. I had enough at this point. I told her for fuck's sake I have my own life, that I will not be the cookie-cutter grandma she wants, and if she tries to leave the kids with me from now on without my agreement that I will call the police for abandonment. She called me a jerk and stormed off. My son called trying to smooth it over and saying I may have gone too far. Edit, for everyone going on about how he couldn't know, doesn't he talk to his kids? The kids were 4 months and 1 3/4 years old when she kept dropping them off. They weren't really talking, the oldest sure could move but not a big talker. It really hit off when she was pregnant and got even worse when the second one was born. Am I the fool for saying no to my sister and her family staying with us after a house fire? My sister and her family lost their family home in a house fire 3 weeks ago. It happened in the middle of the night and initially stayed with our parents on night 1. But our parents have a 1-bedroom house and space was not optimal for that. So they asked if they could stay with my wife and I and our kids. We said no. We said no for mostly one reason but kinda two. For about 2.5/3 years now my sister has been so tough on my wife when it comes to what way we feed our kids. She focuses on my wife far more than me. But it does come back on me too. We don't keep sugar or junk food from our kids. We don't deprive them of that. We simply keep things balanced. We make veggie pancakes, we make healthier pizzas, we allow snacks like chocolate, ice cream or cake, we offer our kids sauces and not all of them are homemade but some are. My sister is so judgmental about it. She didn't let any of her kids have any kind of junk snack until they reached school and they can only eat something like chocolate at birthday parties and they limit the number of those they can attend in close proximity so they don't get 2 days of junk food in a week or more than 3 days of junk food a month. My sister or her husband will also stay at parties, even ones the 10-year-old is invited to make sure they go for the salad over the pizza if they have the chips and candies. My sister acts like our kids eating a chocolate treat or a few chips is the end of the world. She was especially horrified to find out we gave our kids fries with tacos one night and that another night we gave chicken bites with potato cakes and not plain chicken once the potato cakes were involved. Veggies were included both times but the idea of 2 less clean foods horrifies her. My SIL, wife's sister, is a pediatric dietitian and she loves how we feed our kids. She told my sister that once. And my sister was horrified by my SIL's profession. This has all become such a problem that it has become my sister disrespecting my wife. So we see her far less. I don't like that. We used to be close. But I won't allow her to shit all over my wife over a difference in how we see things. Oh, and she also doesn't like that our kids get bread with soup. So when my sister asked if they could stay with us I said no. She told me they really wanted to stay with family instead of at some hotel or strange rental and I told her they would all be happier there when she would be so bothered by the food my wife and I feed our kids. But I also wasn't going to let her stay and disrespect my wife in our home. My sister has been furious with me since then. She told me I took things way too far. I told her she's been going way too far for almost 3 years now. Am I the fool?